I want to talk about SNAP and these cuts, which I know, Matt, you have some of the facts and numbers we can get into in a second. But I just wanted to come out and talk kind of personally about this. I mean, this is a personal thing for me. When I grew up, my family was very poor, and we relied on these kind of programs in order to make ends meet, literally to feed ourselves. One of the things I really respect about the way I grew up is, my mother worked very, very hard. The system does not reward hard work, but my mom also did a lot to make sure that we always kind of had what we needed. And one of the major things was social programs and food programs to make sure that the poor working class American families can feed their kids. Very, very lucky, because there's a lot of parts of the world that doesn't happen. I'm a healthy, tall guy. Like, if I lived in other countries, I wouldn't have had that experience, right? That is why, one of the successes that you see, with people like Lula and then a lot of these movements is like literally just seeing what happens with the height of kids, because they're actually getting adequate nutrition as they're growing up, right? There is a nasty world out there that the right is trying to build, where we do bring back mass starving of the poor, or just create a situation where there are just literal physical differences in how you can see what socioeconomic class somebody is, just by looking at them, because they don't have access to nutrition, right? That is the kind of hierarchical world that this antisocial, disgusting, anti-human right wing wants to build. And this is not just a kind of accidental consequence of some of their hardline policies. This is a goal, because they have always known that getting rid of programs like SNAP will be massively unpopular, right? That's what they've always been told. I think their hope is here. If they can get it cut for a little while, and then they'll say, like, hey, the sky didn't fall, right? You guys accepted it, right? We're going to go all the way, right? We got to get rid of these kind of things. That's their goal here, right? They tried to make these systems unwieldy and difficult in the first place, so that they can try to build up a support to do what they want to do, which is cut them. But Matt, I mean, let's get into this a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a good piece in the Hill. SNAP funding expiration set to hit 40 million people. I mean, that's the main number. 40 million food stamp beneficiaries expected to receive less or help or no help with grocery bills due to this shutdown. Now, this is a choice. There are politics, and if you follow this shutdown, you'll know that Trump is moving money around, sometimes from the pockets of like shadowy wealthy beneficiaries into like troop members pockets. But there is actually provision for this sort of scenario. The USDA has a $5 to $6 billion in a contingency fund that's been put aside for emergencies. They could tap that. Trump administration is deciding not to, because they think it's not, just they're not going to call in the emergency. Because they like that leverage of 40 million people, again, not getting groceries. Yeah, USDA stated will not use the contingency fund because this whole thing was, quote, manufactured by Democrats. Now, Republicans have a trifecta, which means they have the executive branch, they have the Senate, and the House. Trump could do whatever he wants right now. They could get rid of the filibuster, so you don't even need to negotiate with the Democrats, and just pass whatever they wanted to right now. They don't want to do that because that would be politically unpalatable. They want to be able to look at say the Democrats voted with this too. And because they know that whatever they get the Democrats to sign on to is not going to be popular with their base. USDA, some states are trying to move money around to deal with this. This isn't just blue states. Texas, Oklahoma, California, and New York are states involving that. Important to mention this. The Big Beautiful Bill Act that like our boy Josh Hawley and other folks voted for and then lamented the Medicaid cuts to, also had the largest SNAP cuts in the history of that program. And you remember we talked about this in the context of our abundance agenda, which is the original programs that moved the bountiful harvest of abundance from our plains to the communities where people eat it. That was just cut. And so the Republicans are sitting here using not only withholding funding that was put aside by Congress, who is theoretically supposed to be in charge of the power of the purse in this country. That's why you vote for your representatives. They put aside 5 to 6. It wouldn't cover the $8 billion shortfall, but it could go towards it and make it easier for these states to make up what's lacking. Instead, they're deciding after cutting it with the largest cut in history, to also not use emergency funds to keep people fed. They would rather starve people because they want this is again just to play politics, because they could do all of this without a single Democratic vote if
Yeah.
they wanted to get rid of the filibuster.
I think that's like an important point is they want to play politics, but it's also to what end. And I think that it is notable, as you said, Matt, that like they have the capacity to kind of push these things through without needing to negotiate, but they need to have the boogeyman. They need to have the enemy because they want to try to blame this on the other side. And we're seeing that right now. Josh Hawley, who you mentioned, Matt, who for a long time has been doing frankly a whisper campaign. I don't think average folks really think of him in this way, but as like, oh, he's like a more working class or focused Republican. He wrote this
Yeah.
in the New York Times opinion today. Josh Hawley, no American should go to bed hungry. The federal government has been shut down for 28 days and counting. That's 28 days too long. Congress must not let that in. America is a great and wealthy nation, and our most important wealth is our generosity of spirit. Some Jesus stuff. It talks about how many people are going to be hurt. Last year, SNAP and release hit about 42 million. That's over 12% of the American population. Well, interesting that you've been such a champion of this, by the way. Just being so devastated to have to vote for the immiseration of folks, right? It's kind of nasty talk out of both sides of his mouth. So he says, all these things about all these good people, right? Who are, kind of suffering. And he has pushed this new bill to kind of put to fund SNAP basically throughout the shutdown. And it's got some signatories from the Republican Party. I'm just going to read them out here. James Lankford from Oklahoma, Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, Susan Collins from Maine, Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee, Bernie Moreno from Ohio, Kevin Kramer, North Dakota, Bill Cassidy, Louisiana, Katie Britt, Alabama, John Husted, Ohio, and John Cornyn from the state of Texas. And that has also been signed on by Democrat from Vermont, Pete Welch. So kind of odd, that they're doing two things at once, right? They've been leading this push to wage war on these services, and now you're hearing this kind of very public lamenting. Well, why is that? I think it's because they know and understand that the consequences of this are going to be immense. And they're going to be seen, and they're going to be felt, and they're going to be understood by millions and millions of people. So what we're seeing from the Republican Party right now is an attempt to try to shift blame upon the other side for something that is firmly in their control. Now, to note that the Democrats have now put forward their own version of this bill. The senator from New Mexico has kind of put forward a Democrat version of this as well. So, we're getting this moment where the Republicans are basically trying to shirk their responsibility for something that they are responsible for. Because I think that they realize, in particular, like Cornyn and Hawley, that this is going to be very, very bad politically. And, I think, as people know, this isn't to kind of excuse Jeffries and Schumer, who have played a fundamental role in getting us to this kind of crisis. No doubt about it. But let's also not forget the Republican Party that is kind of got their foot on the gas pedal.
Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit of reservations on the Dem side of things because Schumer and Jeffrey should have stepped down from leadership last year.
Yeah.
They failed. Chuck Schumer, in particular, we talked about him in 2016, talking about the suburban strategy. He's a failure. How many? We gonna give him a full decade to fail? They should have stepped down. They can't message this moment. So what you've had is people like Bernie and AOC, who are still marginalized in terms of the levers of power in this party, pushed forward because they can fucking talk. And that's a dangerous thing because I don't know how this is going to play out. And they've been given, like, now they could hurt all the capital that they are building up for something that they're not even in the driver's seat of. And, there's still, like, you still have Chuck Schumer pushing Zionists like Haley Stevens in Michigan. I feel very worried about, how this might play out.
I think there's a lot of talking. This is kind of branching out to Zoran conversations, but there has been a kind of victory lap moment, I think, where you've seen a lot of Democrats who were not very pro Zoran recently, or at least were very hesitant. Now we're coming around because writing looks on the wall, like it's on the wall. You don't want to be the last Cuomo supporter, so it has kind of put, particularly I think AOC and to a certain extent Bernie Sanders in the limelight, right next to Zoran, because like yeah, these are very charismatic speakers. They're speaking, the truth. They're way more popular than your average Democrat. But yeah, I think that you're right. That you need to be careful. Like I think that like you need to not be timid about
Yeah.
taking power and advantage when you have it, right? So I can't say fault them for taking this,
Right.
but there's no doubt about it that the Democratic Party has no real interest in reforming around these figures. It really is the question is like, are you able to just basically force them through the popularity of your movement, your moment? And I think that if you're going to do that, you probably need to take a line of kind of criticizing the party that has got us to the situation that we're in. And I get that like that's probably not going to be the first bit of the stump speech, but probably is going to need to be part of it if you're serious about it. Because as we're seeing with the polling here, a lot of people do blame the Republicans for the shutdown, right? It is something that I think the average American understands. What Democrats continually fail on is that they think that that is necessarily going to be seen as, oh, well, the Democrats are good at it. No, most people are like, oh, yeah, they're the ones who are pushing it. We understand how the system works. They're the ones in power. But the reason they're in power and the reason that it hasn't been stopped is also because the Democrats are ineffective, right? And
Yep.
this is a real danger, which is like where you can see something like this that is going to be horrible and have massive human suffering consequences. And that one, you think that you're going to be able to get kind of cheap political points off of it. That's just disgusting and anti-human. And two, thinking that you are just going to be able to get political points off of it because you probably aren't, especially if you're not seen as like really fighting or having a plan or an alternative. Because frankly, in this country, gridlock government shutdowns have just been a part of our politics for years. And a reason for that has been like, yes, the obstinance of the Republican Party and all that, but also the lack of vision and the lack of rootedness and connection amongst working class people and everyday voters in this country in their relationship to the Democratic Party.
Adam Gentleson, the staffer who was at Fetterman, who now is doing like a sort of centrist sort of thing, was saying in the run up to Kamala's defeat that the American electorate hasn't experienced a revocation of rights like they did under the fall of Roe versus Wade, and banking that the bros like us were discounting how much Americans would turn out in 2024 because of abortion as an issue,
Mm-hmm.
because they were banking on it. They leveraged themselves against it and it failed.
And ironically, they think instead of like again, because they saw that like abortion rights are popular with the American public, right? But the thing is like they don't realize this connection is that people do not believe that you were going to be able to deliver on that. I mean, like they talked about it a lot as a kind of a threat, frankly, for places that like don't have abortion bans. But it wasn't something that was going to pick up folks who were looking to kind of push back against it because there was no real kind of Democrat push in the election or like something that was believable on a visceral level that got people to show up and vote for you. That the Democratic Party had any real plan to push back against. We saw from the Supreme Court and then conservative-run states. Let's look at some big minds here, Matt, because I just want to remind people of what we're up against and who this Republican Party is. You have not seen this yet, Matt. I just want people to remember these faces, remember these names, and remember this party as we do see the consequences of a bunch of millionaires deciding that over 40 million people shouldn't have access to food, right? I want you to remember who these folks are. This is Beau French, who is the leader of the GOP here in Tarrant County in Texas. November 1st is the day when this will go in effect. Beau French says November 1st, 2025 is National Chimp Out Day. It's going to be lit.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be very clear about this. This is not a troll account. This is not some random person. This is a person in a position of influence and authority within the Republican Party, which, by the way, is the ruling party and has been the ruling party in the state of Texas since I was at like 2. That is what is this party right now. And now, of course, Beau French is going to do this kind of thing where he's like, I didn't know. I didn't
But
know.
sorry, what's that second tweet? Just put that back
Yeah,
up
sorry.
there. The no snap and the N is in parentheses. Why would the letter N? Why would a guy that makes a Nazi joke like that put an N in parentheses?
Yeah, that's an
I'm just
interesting
guessing.
one.
I haven't seen
Could
that
you,
before, but it's.
I think that's, yeah, I don't think that's a bad point, but could you just kind of paint that for folks who aren't familiar with what that was when that was an
I,
internet thing?
I'm actually not familiar with it.
Oh,
I'm just inferring that he's referring to the N word there.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that's off base.
Right.
Someone said this is racist. It was not. It was a racist one used against Elon. It just means freaking out. So okay, classic thing where they just don't do that. We got a little bit of our boy
Pussy.
Jason Aldean here, famous anthem about killing folks. I want to note this person here. We the people. This is very
This is like a
offensive, by the
50-year-old
way.
man.
Oh yeah, he's a grown adult.
It's a grown ass
in
man
Tarrant
talking
County.
like this.
Anyways, these are the reports here. It won't just be chimps. It will probably be looking at jihadis, also running, other just nasty stuff. This is why the left needs to get their fentanyl Floyd worshippers out in the streets, the seeds of chaos. This would be a great time to round them up and send them home. And this is I don't even know what this is.
Jesus
this list
fucking
of like
Christ.
how many people. I mean, just really kind of bottom of the barrel Nazi stuff. And look, this is those are the people who are responding to that. So I don't know. Yeah, that's like a disgusting Nazi, but that's a disgusting Nazi who saw what the leader of the Tarrant County Republican Party was saying and said, like, yes, sir, I get exactly what you're saying. Let me help you make your point even firmer. So
Yep.
this is what
this is from Care too, David. I just saw this looking at our buddy
he's
Beau French. Care Texas demands removal of Tarrant County GOP chair over anti-Semitic Islamophobic poll. Doing a poll that's both at once. And if you could guess how you would do that, it would be
we're innovating here
pose
in
a
the state
greater
of Texas,
threat,
yeah.
Muslims or Jews.
Yeah.
What a fucking
just disgusting.
And then to back off, some people say it's racist, but what about Elon? Bitch.
I mean,
this is
what this kind of politics has always been about: the smile and the wink. Oh, we're just messing around. How could you take me seriously? Well, it's because I do, and I think and people like you are in power, and they're working day and night to make sure that the kids starve, and the other ones away get bombed. And I don't know. My human values, my Texas values, tell me that that's a bad thing. And I think that we'll be better off when these people are far away from power and laughed at and ridiculed as the monsters and antisocial vagrants that they are.
I mean, remember Steve King? Steve King from Iowa?
Yeah.
He was just ahead of his time.
Yeah.
Like he is perfectly at home. There's no chance in hell he is forced to resign or like loses all of his shit from Republicans as far as like committee placements in this day and age. Like they're just all Steve Kings now. He's just too old.
Folks, this is just a reminder, as almost every day in this country has been for my whole life, but particularly the past few years, that we need to get very serious about winning power. And to do that, we need to get serious about politics. We need to get serious about building working class institutions that could take on these folks. Because the fact that these are the people who are in power, just shows that the historic weakness of our movement. And this is the time to get very, very, very engaged and serious about a lot of the exciting movements that we're seeing to push back against this. Obviously, the big one being Zoran Mamdani. We'll have more on that soon.